Welcome to Beacon of Creation, a weekly podcast on game design through the lens of Magic the Gathering. I'm Tim.
And I'm Shawn Elizabeth Main.
We are incredibly excited to have you as our guest this week. You were the lead designer on Conspiracy and Battle Bond. You were on like a bunch of other Magic sets, all kinds of stuff like that.
Yeah. I was a Magic designer for 6 years. That was, a few years back. So,
yeah.
I don't have the up-to-date knowledge of, current design philosophy as always, but I certainly have the experience with the game.
Yeah. Maybe you can indulge me a little bit. And do you remember, the creation of Conspiracy, how that got started, what your ideas were going into that, any of that? Or is that too far away?
Absolutely. No. Conspiracy was very much like the first thing that I led, and it was kind of my baby.
Oh.
Before coming to Wizards, I very much was like a multiplayer person, and it was before Commander had really taken off. My friends and I also really liked drafting, so we kind of had what you might call a cube now, although we didn't really. Cube wasn't ever the term we used for it.
Yeah.
I brought that in and kind of was shopping it around without like really too much direction for what it might turn into as a product, but kind of saying like, maybe there's something to kind of this multiplayer drafting space. Initially was pitching it maybe with like Plane Chase involved. They were starting to have this like supplemental product every year, and they were very excited about the idea that it would be like a booster product. And kind of without a lot more direction than simply it's a multiplayer booster product. We started on it and really kind of found our way into Conspiracies mechanically, and then later like what that meant flavorfully to kind of unite all these like disparate, multiplayer mechanics that we had. It succeeded enough that as one of the unsets, I'm forgetting which one now, Unstable was supposed to be kind of coming the following year. And then when Conspiracy came out, it was successful enough that they asked me like, hey, do you want to do a sequel to this? And I said, absolutely. And so then we kind of launched right after that into working on Take the Crown.
Yeah. The Conspiracy card type, was this like a draft mechanic using Conspiracies, or was this something else you had in your back pocket?
Yeah, so that kind of there were two things. Initially, I threw in a card that was simply like, you are the first player. And so it was something you could draft and like, take the place of a card. How high did you draft it? All of that good stuff. And also kind of the concept of like the Plane Chase and like turning that into more something you could put into a booster pack. Because we initially conceptualized them as being like much more warping to the whole game. Kind of through playing with them discovered like, oh no, actually the satisfying thing is much more like, because there's that choice of taking it or taking a card, you have these interesting trade-offs that you can make. And therefore, you can actually go to these really, you don't need to have it be like a new game rule or something, although there's a couple of them that play in that space. But like, it could just be, hey, here's a little bit of additional power that doesn't go in your deck. And that actually had like a whole bunch of interesting design space. It had and particularly like the hidden agendas of powering up individual things turned out to be this like really fruitful design space that we really got to mine. And I'm not even sure at the handoff from design to development how prominent hidden agendas were. That's long enough ago that I'm forgetting, but like I know they really leaned into kind of the hidden part of that. And then once we established kind of the setting, it kind of like really united things quite a bit to have this like hidden piece of game information at the start of the game.
Yeah. The hidden stuff also works well just to decrease the like load at the very beginning of any given game.
Absolutely. Yep.
You don't have to like say, okay, I've got this mana Conspiracy on this. If I happen to even draw that, this may or may not come up, folks, but I need to tell you about it. Instead, it's hidden, and then it just gets disclosed when it should be.
It does create some nice anticipation of, hey, I'm not telling you what, but here's 4 hidden things. So I've got something to surprise you in the course of the game. So yeah.
Yeah. Was stacking conspiracies on one kind of crappy common, was that like one of your favorite things to do with it, or was it more just
Oh yeah. Definitely there's like we added like a real crummy cycle of creatures, purely for the purpose of you should be able to collect all of these in the course of your draft.
Yeah, get 4 or 5 or 6 of like
Mhm.
Lizard Warrior or whatever it was.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. It is Lizard Warrior. I was like, I think it's
Oh yeah. No, that's immediately the one I was thinking of too.
Yeah. I love that card just because I see it and I remember Conspiracy. Imagine elevating just like the most humble vanilla to memorable draft status.
All those games where it's 6/4 haste and yep.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just an absolute hammer. Would you want to have more different conspiracies? Do you think the amount that are in there is about what you want to do?
I think it was healthy. I think Conspiracy 2 pushed it a little bit too far with some of the frequency for some of the elements. I think like having about one conspiracy or draft impacting thing in one was the right number. I think overall 2 is the better crafted experience and the one that holds up a little better.
Yeah.
But the frequency, I think, of the first one was a little bit, more where I would aim it if they somehow weirdly Wizards came along and asked me to make a Conspiracy 3, I'd go back to one or the other in every booster.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, that's still a lesson people can take, because I know I've tried putting conspiracies and draft matters cards in various cubes, and then sometimes you have the thing where like you have 4 new drafters in with this cube, and also they have to like learn that they have to ask their neighbors about things in a card, or their neighbor, even worse, asks them without them having any idea why. The dream of playing with conspiracies is so good and so fun that you forget, we maybe can't turn it up too high. We gotta let it be an occasional treat.
Yeah, I mean, I do love what they do to getting you to interact with your neighbors in the course of a draft and like start that social element of a multiplayer game right from the beginning. I mean, assuming your cube is multiplayer, but
yeah.
Even things like Cogwork Librarian, which is the card that you
the famous one,
trade in the pack. I think is so good at just like, oh, if you draft that, I'm suddenly like watching this object on the table in front of you and thinking, oh, I might get this eventually, and that became kind of my favorite card in the set. It's not the most impactful, but it was so good at just like with very simple game mechanics, like introducing all these concepts that kind of were key to the set.
Yeah, and I think that like Cogwork Librarian, especially as like lived on, I've definitely played a lot of cubes where every pack gets a seated Cogwork Librarian. So people are accumulating multiple through the draft and then cashing in at the start of pack 3 to just grip 5 cards. Maybe it's the mixture of conspiracies and draft matters that can maybe mess with new players. Maybe if you standardize on one or the other, then you're keeping it a little bit more cohesive.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of pressure. I think I've seen people learn to play on Conspiracy, and I think it's doable, but there's definitely some things, because just like evaluating like a hidden agenda or something is very difficult when you don't know kind of the value of a card versus the value of bonuses that are not on a card. That's some of the stuff that I feel like gets really tricky for a new person to understand. But I do think like multiplayer can be very friendly to a new person because you kind of it doesn't have the same zero sum of like one-on-one. And so you can kind of hold back and just kind of watch other people interact. Maybe they'll even, fight with each other, and you can kind of come in second because you just were kind of staying out of things. And I think that can be kind of a satisfying experience for a newer person just learning the game.
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes the catch for me is the opening a booster pack at the start of the draft can be the heavy thing. If you have, I mean, Conspiracy is kind of nice because you have commons and everything. You got a little bit of a break reading those cards. When I've seen like Conspiracies and Draft Matters cards in regular cubes, that's where it's like really kind of putting someone into overload pretty quickly when they're just not.
Yeah,
They're
that's
reading multiple.
absolutely fair.
But yeah, I would love to see some more conspiracies. I think there's some custom conspiracies out there. I've seen them. I've never played with them, but people have been trying.
I keep waiting for them to make this Conspiracy 3 someday. I'd love to, experience that as a player now.
Yeah. Alrighty, well, my kind of indulgent bonus convo about conspiracy aside, we're here today because we're doing another design crossover ep. I've been really enjoying these. We've been doing a couple of these lately. But the main idea here is that a design crossover ep, this crossover ep, is not about doing like a universes beyond. How do we take characters from League of Legends or Street Fighter or whatever else and bring them into Magic cards? But rather, let's learn about the other game systems and then think about how we could take some of those lessons and maybe steal them for Magic. Whenever you learn a new board game, you kind of half want to play the new board game and you half want to like think of all the variations to the board game that you could do. And so we're talking about Teamfight Tactics.
Yeah, last 2 years I've been working on TFT for Riot. I just was the lead of the most recent set.
Wow.
Into the Arcane, which is the Arcane themed, or specifically Arcane Season 2 tie-in set. And last weekend, at the time of recording, we just had a big tournament in Macau, which was exciting.
Wow. Macau. Okay. This is like a big moment for Teamfight Tactics. I've seen people talking about it a lot more because of that Arcane tie-in. Everyone's like, I'm not sure if I want to jump into League, but I could play TFT. That's like a little more chill.
I'd definitely say, if you're particularly like a Magic player or just strategy game player in general, I'll admit I'm not much of a League player. I really like the IP, but like I don't have twitchy reflexes, and but TFT can sometimes have a little bit more of like a time pressure than like a Magic draft, but it is still like very much a strategy game. At its core, it is kind of this continual draft where you go back and forth between buying units and assembling your team, and then playing matches against other players. The auto part of the auto battler, you're not really controlling your units in battle. They're just automatically fighting. So you kind of almost becomes sports-like, where you've done the drafting, but now you're just like watching it play out.
Oh, this is like a Football Manager, but
yeah, a little bit. Yep, exactly.
Do you feel like that's the right mixture? That it's like 90% of your input is on the building side, and like 10% is like positioning your units correctly. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment of it. Positioning becomes very key to like high level play and things like that. But a lot of the fun of it, and this I felt like was one of the biggest skills I needed to learn coming from like, a card game background, was like, okay, I have a little bit of a handle on how the strategy fits together and the units and the traits and all of that. But now you get the spectacle of it, of I'm just watching these units play out, and there's kind of some of the skills of like a combat designer who needs to think about like animation timing and okay, this character kind of rolls over here and then they jump, and like thinking about all those like timings was a very new skill for me to learn.
Yeah. Oh, it takes this long to swing the sword, so I better not have an effect that has to happen 5 times a second, because we don't want to show 5 sword slashes in a second if we can avoid it.
Exactly. Or it can end up, impacting, well, if we have a really long wind-up animation here, that's going to impact like how this character plays, because now their spell takes longer to execute. And so visual elements end up being kind of fitting into the strategy elements, and you couldn't just be like, this character is going to do 200 damage at this moment. You have to think about like durations and cast times and all of that kind of stuff overlapping with it. But that's really getting into the weeds. I maybe should back up and start with the basics.
Yeah, so we've got this kind of draft deck build phase, or whatever you want to call that. And then it alternates with combat round. Is that the right name for this?
Yeah. So it's planning phases where you're buying champions from a shop.
Okay.
And then you have combat rounds, which mostly are against other players. occasionally you have these kind of PvE rounds.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Where you're getting like loot from the enemies. And the loot is mainly in the form of items. Actually, let me start with champions before I go deep into items.
Yeah,
champions, there's like escalating costs, and they grow more powerful as you go from 1 costs up to 5 costs.
Okay.
If you get 3 of a kind, they will shloop together and become a 2-star. If you get 3 2-stars, they will shloop together and you'll get a 3-star that's much more powerful.
Mm-hmm.
You've got different positions that these champions might play, like tanky characters you'll put in the front, ranged characters you'll put in the back.
Support characters,
exactly,
decoys, other kind of stuff,
Very key is that they'll all have traits, typically like 2 or 3 traits. And there'll be something like, in this set, we had like the enforcers, and you might be like an enforcer bruiser. In and of themselves, those typically don't do anything, but they start to give you bonuses as you collect sets.
Oh, okay.
At 2 enforcers, all of them get a little bit of a special ability. They mark enemies as wanted. They get a little stronger when they beat wanted enemies. Bruisers are it's like a tanky class. They'll get more health as you collect more and more of them. So a lot of the strategy as you gain levels and can field more and more units is thinking about how you're going to combine the different units and the different traits of I'm going to collect all the enforcers because the 8-piece for enforcers is very strong. Or you might be balancing like a whole bunch of different ones.
Yeah, this is like a big part of your teams. How many units do you have? You start with like a couple and then you go up to 8? Is that the right 10?
At the very beginning, you have just, I guess just 1 in the very first round. But typically, you'll cap out around 8 or 9. Sometimes 10.
Oh.
And like Magic, I can always draw asterisks of extraordinary circumstances where weird things can happen. But typically you'll cap out at around 8 or 9.
So I'm getting some amount of gold every fight, 5 gold, 10 gold, and then I'm spending 1 or 2 or 3 gold on units.
Exactly. Getting into the weeds of the systems. So you can spend gold to buy units. You can spend gold to level up, and those become like increasing costs as you go up in level. Going up in level will increase the number of units you can field and give you better odds to get some of the higher cost units.
Yeah, so that concept of like leveling, you're kind of leveling your shop up, basically.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. That's an interesting thing to try to think through. Like, if I'm thinking of Magic and I'm spending mana on my spells, what if there was some other thing I could be spending my mana on that increase the quality of my draws? Or what could we even do? Increase the, I don't know, some more static, like overall, like monstrous, but for, all my my entire squad, I guess.
Yeah, that's interesting. If you'd spend, 10 mana and now you're drawing 2 cards a turn or something like that.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. And that's something that actually could get you into that board game zone where you maybe have, 3 or 4 or 5 of these different upgrades that you can start to work towards. And we can easily see, in the middle of the table, we can tell who has paid for upgrade A, who has paid for upgrade B.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
We were talking about conspiracy earlier. So maybe I'm in that multiplayer mindset, but that's that's when I can see, hey, Shawn has decided to not play any spells this turn and just upgrade their card draw. This is the time to get at her. This is the downtime to maybe pounce.
Yeah, cool.
Do you have that in TFT? Are you aware of your opponents? Or, I mean, at a high level, I'm sure high level players are always paying attention to everything. But if I've played, 30 games of TFT, am I aware of my opponents, or I just sort of see them and they are however strong they are?
So the key of that is that it is a drafting game, and there are a limited number of copies of each champion. So there's value in making sure that you aren't playing the same thing that a bunch of different people are playing. It works a little bit as a self-correcting mechanism if, I don't know, this set, bruisers are really busted. Then, only so many of us can actually take them all because we're going to run out of copies and be, not able to necessarily, especially if you want to 3-star them or something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
You will be limited in
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. There you really need. So can you look at other players' squads, or it's just like I fought John earlier and I saw that they had 6 bruisers and it was their only turn 8 or whatever. So I better stay out of bruisers. Or how am I getting that info? How am I learning about
You can
tip?
scout other players. It also impacts like positioning. It tends to get pretty advanced with the positioning. Like, I don't know that I'm a good enough player to particularly take advantage most of the time, but I can see like, oh, your key unit is in this corner, so let me move my guys to like position against them. Or maybe, I don't know, you've got AoE attacks, so I'm going to really spread my guys out or something like that.
Okay.
But at the base level, I can look and be like, oh, yep, Tim is in bruisers. I'm going to stay out and going to pivot to doing something else.
What's my limitation on scouting then? Just the time limit? Like I only have 30 seconds to buy, so I can't spend all that time looking at people?
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Usually you don't. I can kind of just glance at your board and see like, oh, he's in bruisers. Yeah. I'm probably not going to hang out and be like, okay, and he's doing this, and I'm really analyzing your strategy. And honestly, I am a player that struggles with the clock enough that I'm like, unless I'll glance at other people a couple times, and otherwise I'm just staring at my own board.
Yeah, a big thing we talk about when you're talking about like variants of Magic is like pulling the complexity out of one place and putting it in another place. And one thing that I've been interested in that I think this is related to is there was some way to like see more just like face-up signals in Magic drafts so you could have a little bit of a better idea. Maybe not looking at everybody's pool all the time, rotisserie or whatever it's called, Rochester style, but maybe like the first pick of every pack, or there's some like certain cards have to be drafted face up or something like that.
That could be cool. There's probably an interesting variant, which I've sometimes seen in like league type play, but where you have this concept of like kind of going back and forth between drafting and playing out matches. And I feel like that's what TFT is closest to.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so therefore you might be seeing like, oh yeah, I've got 3 of my opponents are in red or something like that. And maybe I should, try to pivot out of it because they're going to soak up the red cards in the next booster pack.
Yeah. Well, because I think like reading signals in Magic can often feel like that, where you could be 50 drafts into your drafting career and still signals are like completely random to you.
Oh, yeah.
Like I like to do that when I have the mental space for it. But I'm curious if there's a way to like bring that out of the high level strategy and make it part of the feeling of what you're doing.
I mean, this is a random idea along those lines, but combining the idea of collecting things, I think, is so satisfying, and it's one of the keys of like kind of the trait system, and as well as like tribal elements in Magic that kind of bring them together. But if like you had some rewards in your draft that were like collect 3 goblins and you get some kind of bonus.
Yes.
And so like, once I've got the 3 goblins, I can turn them up, and maybe that's a card conspiracy style that's encouraging me to do that. Or maybe it's a thing in the middle of the table that tells me, we've got a whole list of them, but probably more fun if it's like something that I've taken. The Goblin King says, reveal me in the draft and 2 other goblins, and now you get some kind of bonus.
If we're talking new players again, new players love to latch onto something.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And if you make that a good thing to do, if you make it rewarding, maybe ultimately staying completely flexible is the best strategy. But if I just want to go ham and be the goblin player today, and like I get a cool reward for doing that, and I'm playing normal games of Magic, but I feel cooler about it because I'm wearing the goblin crown today because I drafted this card.
Sure.
Because that's like why people want to draft like kind of typal sets. They want to draft like Lorwyn or something because they can have actually 14 elves in a deck. And it's like, I'd never get to do this. This is so cool.
I mean, if you were concerned, you could always have things that are like reveal a card of every color or something, and now something happens. If you want to give the incentives to not just push the take every goblin button or whatever.
Yeah, I guess, you'd want some of the incentives to be super linear, like you're talking about. Just take every goblin, and some of them to be more obtuse, like,
more big brain plays, yeah.
Yeah, have 10 gold cards in your deck or whatever. Which I think would also appeal to a different kind of player who is just the absolute draft freak and just wants to go for the most obscure strat possible. Yeah. So the drafting here, are there like 50 different champions, 100 different champions? About how many are there at any given time?
In a set, you typically have 58.
58.
There's a pretty specific breakdown per cost. Into the Arcane played with expectations a little bit. Normally it's 1 through 5 costs, and we introduced a 6 cost of even more powerful, even rarer special rules to collect them. But yeah, typically it's 58 champs. We snuck a few extras in to get to 62.
All right, that's cool. But I end up buying a lot more than that. I end up buying like 10 of a given person, right?
Yeah. And I mean,
or I guess 9.
Because your strategy is changing as you accumulate more units, you very much might like buy something and field it for a little while and then swap it out.
Yeah.
You do recoup the cost when you sell units. So there's very little penalty for like, I'll start with rebels and then like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go to enforcers or something and like do that kind of pivoting.
But it doesn't cost you much gold to do that because if you sell a 2 cost unit, you get 2 gold back?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
There's a few asterisks on that are like way in the weeds.
Sure.
But generally, until you start getting to the mid game, it's pretty easy to be pivoting around kind of what you're getting.
Oh, okay.
One other key mechanic to the game is there's 3 rounds where you get augments, which are kind of like an enchantment or something. They're like a permanent bonus that you're picking one of 3 choices. And actually, kind of like we're saying, some of them are very linear. Some of them might say, hey, your bruisers get a little bit better. And now like, okay, great. I've really got a plan here. Some of them might be much more open-ended and just be like, hey, get some extra gold every round or something like that. So, you can be even more flexible or, your strategy becomes like go to level 9 or something like that.
Oh, level. So I guess there are a lot of levels. Level 9?
Oh, sorry. Levels being you level up, and that's kind of like you were describing leveling up your shop. Level 9 means I have 9 slots available on my team to put units, and it means there's certain odds that I'm more likely to be seeing 4 costs in my shop, and less likely to see 1 cost, so that you're slowly getting better and better quality units as you go deeper into the game.
Yeah. I guess in these kinds of games, you also can't use as many of the units as you get further in the game. At the beginning of the game, it sounds like you're saying, hey, get a full team, be flexible, feel free to buy and sell as much as you want. But then later on, it's like, well, I only care about enforcers and this one other unit, and I'm going to, you can re-roll, right? I can see more and more shops. So I'm going to keep re-rolling, and I might re-roll like 6 times and not see anything that I can play with.
Oh, yeah. There's very much like a lot of the strategy comes down to crafting a really ideal final team comp of like, okay, my strategy is to go to level 9. It's to play these, 6 enforcers, and because I'm going to use Vi, and Vi is a pit fighter, I want to get extra pit fighters to help power her up. And then, kind of like you're saying with rerolling, you might, okay, I've got 50 gold. I am going to spend it all trying to get as many copies of Vi or whoever as possible. So I'm maximizing the power on her.
But as a player in this game, I kind of keep tabs on my entire team and their entire status, like each time throughout the game. It's not kind of like in Magic, like I might forget cards that are in my deck. In TFT, you know like exactly what equipment each one has, and you're really keeping them all in mind?
Yeah, you are, with the asterisk that I'd say a lot of the bonuses are kind of multiplicative. So you
Oh.
often, particularly when you get into items, which I guess is the other major system I haven't really mentioned,
Yeah.
you get items, you get them as components first, and any two components that you combine will become a specific upgraded item. I should know the
Yeah,
number of items off the top of my head, but it's something like 8 or 9 items, and so you've got, quite a few combinations, and some might be better for tanky characters, some are better for magic-y characters, and champs can have up to 3 completed items. And because all the power in the game is kind of multiplicative, you will have a whole team and your team is meaningful, but you are typically going to have like one tank that you're putting all your tanky items on, one damage dealer who serves as kind of your carry, and you're putting all the items on them, and they're kind of the star of your show, and they're the ones that you might have some little chump off to the side who's dealing a little bit of damage, like 200 damage in the course of the fight, while your Vi or whoever deals like 6,000 damage in the course of the fight or something.
Yeah.
So yeah,
but that little helper on the side is maybe providing, I don't know, mana to Vi,
absolutely.
and that's what's like,
at the least, the little helper on the side might be a pit fighter, and so because they're there, you have pit fighter 2, and Vi's a little bit stronger because she's a pit fighter. Yeah.
Now you can critically hit. Now Vi is critically hitting just because there's another pit fighter to keep you company.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that kind of like combining things within a set is like kind of hard to do with booster packs because there's a lot of cards. There's like 250 cards or whatever in a set. So it's a little harder to say, get all 3 of these different things, and then something cool happens. I mean, people love Cauldra or the Meld cards or whatever because they are so special. But just on a practical level, they're not usually that possible.
Yeah, I think there's something very intrinsic about kind of that collecting sets of stuff being very satisfying, whether it's, collect all the goblins, or even collect all the red cards, or collect all the pit fighters, or all the copies of Vi. There's like whole mobile games that are basically just like, get 3 of a kind and it gets better, and that's the mechanic that it's all about.
Yeah, that's something that I've wanted in Magic too, where like maybe if I draft 3 of these combo bears, I get to trade in all 3 from my draft pool for a golden combo bear.
Sure.
That is like the same cost, but like double the stats or whatever.
Yeah.
I guess that's kind of hard to do because you couldn't put golden bears in booster packs, probably. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, typically it happens through like every copy you play gets a little stronger, which, has some of the appeal, but there is an appeal to just like, you get to the end of the draft and you're like, I did it. I got, 6 combo bears. And now because I got 6 of them, they're all a little bit cooler. It's weird we started with conspiracy because I feel like all of the mechanics that I'm thinking of to bring this into Magic are very conspiracy-esque, like things happening, operating at the draft level.
Yeah.
But there we go. This is the Conspiracy 3 set. We're making it right now.
Teamfight Conspiracy.
Yeah.
When we're thinking of kind of variants of Magic, Conspiracy is the one that everyone loves the most. So it's kind of like our example, our guiding star of like, hey, you can mess with Magic and out of game cards and have them rule.
It's very nice of you to say when there's, formats like Commander and things, or maybe Commander is just so intrinsic now that,
Yeah. Maybe I'm not giving enough credit to Commander. But besides maybe like backgrounds, there aren't that many things that are specific to Commander, whereas Conspiracy has things specific to Conspiracy.
I mean, it's messing with the fundamental rules of the game in a different way. I totally get it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe if it's hard for us to print the golden combo bear, is there something else that we can unlock? Like if we do collect 6 cultists, now I'm allowed to like add a demon to my command zone or something like that. Like I'm able to break some other rule. If I draft 6 6 librarians. I can start with a librarian as an 8th card in my opening hand.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting space where, because of the composition of my deck, of these particular cards, it changes their quality in some fundamental way that's, expansive to the starting position. And draft is the easy one to think about because, in constructed, you could just always do it. So you always have to kind of think of that as a possibility. But it's an interesting space. I'm very intrigued by it.
Oh, okay, yeah. I guess the other thing like that I was thinking of is, how do we have a reroll in a draft? Is that something that I can ever have?
Oh, I mean, certainly there's the very heavy-handed conspiracy space of just throw out this pack and get another one, or the Cogwork Librarian kind of answer. But yeah, that's really interesting.
Do I need like smaller packs maybe if I want to do rerolls?
Oh, that makes sense.
If I have 6 cards, because I'm thinking like you've had drafts where like you take the rare as a 6 pick just because it's a rare and like maybe you'll play it out of the format. But what if I could like trade in a rare for my draft pool for like a reroll, a fresh pack or something like that?
That's super cool. I like that idea.
It feels like TFT like indulges way harder than regular draft. The impulse to collect, the impulse to combine.
Mm-hmm.
And 15 card packs are just not always suited for that. So I'm just trying to think like what we can do to get closer to that feeling. Maybe if they're like cast off stuff that other players don't have, it kind of forms a pool of picks that weren't used. I don't know. Maybe I'm going too deep.
No, I really like the space that you're thinking of. This is maybe not like a booster product, but just like if you were thinking of it in like a cube space, the idea that you could somehow like re-roll cards from the pack in front of you and you pull more from unused cards from the cube and add them in somehow, might be a very satisfying space.
Yeah, then you're almost even like shaking up the middle of a pack, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so you don't fully discard 15 cards. You're at some threshold and maybe it's harder to reroll all 15 cards and easier to reroll 3 cards.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what mechanic lets you do it, but just replacing 3 cards out of the cube box is like mechanically not that hard a thing, or like physically is not that hard a thing to do. But it could be very exciting because you reroll and you can either see 3 more totally irrelevant cards, or you can see something that like, I can't believe like in my 12th pick, I'm getting like a mythic that's in my color.
That's really cool. It's interesting because the way it's very much not like TFT is, unless we're really messing with even more of the fundamental rules, I replace the pack, I get first dibs of what's in there, but everyone gets to benefit a little bit from the additional cards.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Like I put some fresh cards in here. I take the best of the 5 cards that I flushed into here. But then the person to my left is actually kind of excited.
Yeah, exactly.
They might get like a second pick quality card as their, 11th pick or whatever we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I want incentives to pay attention to my neighbors. We're going to be hanging out. We're going to be playing a multiplayer game. Because of multiplayer sort of frontier justice, like knowing about your opponent isn't quite that quite as important, quite as like secretive. It's like, okay if a little more info leaks during the draft. I don't know about you, but like I've played a mixture of draft tables that are like completely silent. We're going to take this very seriously. And then draft tables where just that play group, they all talk to each other the entire time during the draft. And for me, that's kind of alien. I'm like, what are we talking? I don't know. But if we can give people reasons where it's okay, like it's rules wise, like it's fine for us to talk about these specific things. It's fine for this reroll to happen, that kind of thing. It could make the draft a little more fun, a little more inclusive. New players sometimes after a cube draft will feel like I did everything wrong, but I couldn't ask for help, and now I think my deck is bad. If we can let people talk during the draft, maybe we can smooth that over.
I'm always so much of the games that I'm playing with other people, I'm playing as an excuse to spend time with them. So
yeah.
I don't want to talk if everyone's taking it seriously or it's a new set, we've got to read cards, but it's so much more fun for me personally when everyone is talking and joking around and, maybe even talking about strategy or something, or there's a new person and they're like asking the person next to them for help. I find that satisfying personally.
Yeah. We were talking a little bit about you go to magic camp and just play Magic for 3 days or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And someone's partner came over for a couple hours to hang out and just, it's the beach, so people like hanging out. And she was kind of roasting us afterward that we were doing like a vintage cube draft and we're like dead silent for 20 minutes. Like just, because like we know most of the cards, but everyone's got to read a couple of these new cards.
Mm-hmm.
Some Warhammer card made it into cube. Now we got to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And like we're taking it seriously because we really want to make cool decks, and that's what's really satisfying to us. But the idea that like we're taking it so seriously that we're not really fully hanging out for 20 minutes. We're just like sitting around a table like monks, like just like working on our work. Yeah. Yeah, so maybe something in that reroll, 3 of a kind, conspiracy, draft matters, like that gives us reasons, excuses to talk and to make it kind of okay to talk. Like, I don't know.
Something like that, and then we combine it with, cards that say reveal 3 goblins or reveal 3 of whatever, and, lots of reasons to be kind of showing pieces of your draft as you go.
Yeah. And like these are cards that could be components of your final, conspiracy draft deck or whatever, but might not be the powerhouse card. So they might just have that piece of text that like is draft matters. And, you put them in your deck because it's a 2-mana 2/2 with the goblin tag. And so you don't have to necessarily word up the cards. You can just kind of put more draft mattersiness. I don't know. Did we learn earlier that maybe we shouldn't be doing that? Maybe you were cautioning us of having too much draft matters. I don't know.
I mean, like, how many times do you want people to be revealing things?
Yeah.
I don't know, like 1 to 3 might be reasonable per person. And so if it's about 1 per pack, that gets you there.
Okay. Well, you've given us a budget. You're the manager here of our draft design.
Sorry, I don't mean to launch into lead designer stuff.
Oh, no. Hey, that's like a thing that I think a lot of our listeners would also be totally into is what kind of mandates come down, because we're all just jokers doing it for fun on our own. We don't have that discipline. We don't have the professionalism.
That's nice of you to say. And yeah, my brain immediately goes to like, okay, so you want to have, I don't know, 1 per rarity per color. So that's about your budget to be working with. Maybe,
Yeah. I'm liking this. Yeah. So I've got my TFT team. I'm a couple rounds in. How many rounds are in a game? Like 15, something like that?
So it's by stages. So you have it gets complicated because it's like stage 1 is 4 rounds, and then every other stage is 7 rounds. Okay, I should have known every other stage is 7 rounds. So around 40 rounds, give or take.
Wow, that's a lot of rounds. Holy cow! I was not expecting that. So each buy phase or whatever you want to call it, that's like 30 seconds, 60 seconds. I guess it probably scales. It probably starts small and gets long.
It's 15 seconds for planning. Oh gosh. Okay. Doesn't matter. Game is about a half hour to maybe 45 minutes if you are doing particularly well. There's a few special rounds or a number of rounds that are a little bit different, like the PvE rounds, like the rounds where you pick augments. And there's these rounds that are very explicitly a shared draft, where everyone, a bunch of champions appear in the middle on what we typically call a carousel. They all have an item component, and everyone, starting with the player in last, is released to go and grab one of the champions and the components.
Oh yeah. Okay. Let me ask about this, because I've seen this. I've tried to watch a little TFT. I haven't actually fired the game up, so I have a mixture of things I've seen that I didn't understand and no actual experience. Normally, you're like looking at however many champions, and you're buying one or re-rolling, maybe buying a couple and re-rolling. Re-rolling a couple times. But then you have these special. Are these between stages? You have these special kind of like cool drafts where you're drafting like a unit and a cool item to go with them?
Yeah, it's almost like it's a rotisserie draft in the middle of your booster draft,
Yeah.
where you now have a round where that plays a little bit differently, and it's still a draft, but
Yeah.
it's fundamentally different because there's a limited pool that everyone shares. Yeah.
And so there's 8 players, something like that?
Eight players, yep.
And are there 8 units in there, or is there like a
There's
overfill?
10 units,
Oh,
or
okay.
maybe 9, but yeah, there's more than the number of players.
Okay, yeah. But these are like kind of juiced, right? They're not just a unit, they're a unit plus an item, and those items are like one of the main things you're really seeking.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Often you will care more about the component than you will about the unit, but there's still like, the 5 cost unit that's perfect for your team might be a key reason why you jump in and grab, one of them. And particularly like, just to come back to like the social things that we've been saying.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things that's fun about these rounds is everyone comes together and you are all staring at the exact same pool of stuff.
Yeah.
And you're forced to like pay attention. You might go in there and grab the unit that I wanted, and then I realized like, oh, you just wanted the belt on that character. Damn, I really wanted that unit or whatever it is. We all kind of get to share this space and pay attention to each other in a little bit of a different way.
Yeah, that does roll. And that's maybe the window that we were looking for. Like, rather than revealing cards and stating things in the middle of picks when people are like picking at different timings, it's between packs that you can then reveal something that you can then.
Oh, that's really cool. I like that.
Yeah.
I think that's exciting.
Because everyone at the end of a pack is like, is everyone ready? Everyone ready? And then whoever's house it is, you typically will be like, okay, start the new pack. Here we could say, okay, now it's a reveal phase or whatever. It's a council phase because we're in conspiracy. We have a council or whatever. And that's when we can like combine things or trade things out or whatever else. And that's when you lay out the council pack that you pick in some direction.
Yeah, that's really cool. I really like that idea.
And then it's totally okay to talk. Everything is face up info. We're silent for 6 minutes and then we talk for 3 minutes and then we're silent for 6 minutes.
Sure,
we get the best of both worlds. We please every player.
Yeah, no, I really like that. I think that's a nice way to like limit it without, if someone is face down and tanking and thinking about their picks and doesn't want to be distracted. Yeah, you've limited it to a very specific timing. I like that a lot.
Yeah. That's something that I've I found most interesting when I was trying to watch Teamfight Tactics are that it's like the units are they like walking in a circle almost? Is that about what? Yeah. It's got a different presentation to it. And you're everyone's looking at the same thing. You don't have to like, I don't know, wonder if you're what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, it's got a very, all of TFT tends to have this very like whimsical flavor to it. But yeah, they're all going around like ring around the rosy as you like select the one that you want to run and grab. Thinking about it, it's got a very like childhood game to it, kind of. Is there like, you run in and tag someone in Duck Duck Goose almost. Yeah,
you like grab the unit and drag it back or something.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. That is kind of fun. How do you add that element to Magic? A little bit of whimsical. I guess maybe that's the kind of unset difference. Like you're allowed to have like physical things matter. I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting. In TFT, like Into the Arcane, the set is a very dark. It's arcane themed. All
that's
of
what
that.
I was gonna say. Yeah.
But the kind of avatar that all the players have are typically these very cutesy characters that kind of represent you.
It's like your cursor almost is like it might be a little floating sheep or something. Like it's like a little goofball.
Yeah, we've got like a penguin that's kind of one of the main mascots, and he's kind of adorable. And you are represented by the penguin. But yeah, I'm not sure because, like, if I'm drafting, my avatar is me.
I'm holding cards.
Yeah. I'm not sure if it's a good metaphor. There might be something in there.
I guess if your commander is a goofball, but like you have to fill your deck with hardcore warriors or whatever. It's the same similar vibe. or having like Chun-Li as your commander.
Sure.
Yeah, so those like ring around things, those happen every stage, which was like after several rounds. That's right.
Yep, once in the middle of every stage except the first one now.
Oh, okay. But for the most part, you're doing like 30 seconds of buying, watching 20 seconds of fight, 30 seconds of buying, 20 seconds of fight, or something. I mean, those exact times, we're not going to, yeah.
Exactly that idea, yeah.
Yeah. So you're actually, I did not realize that it was like 40 rounds. I thought it was a way lower number. Like I've played like Hearthstone Battlegrounds, and that might be like 15 rounds or something. But this, there's a lot of buy phases. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, you definitely, I mean, that kind of contributes to the thing of being a little bit flexible and kind of being able to pivot is often like the advanced strategy. Like the baseline is you're like, you go in and you're like, I've got my list of enforcers. I'll buy everything on this list exactly. But as you kind of get a little bit more familiar, there's a lot of fun in like, ooh, I started out with enforcers, but then I got this weird augment that made me want to build it a little bit differently. And now, here's a really unique scenario that I ended up in where kind of I went from, I don't know, I planned to go in with enforcers and instead I'm like, I have all the pit fighters and that's the strategy I'm playing this time. That's kind of vaguely overlapping, but really unique or different. Yeah.
Yeah, and they have like multiple tags. So you might accidentally find your way into 4 pit fighters, and they're like, "Well, I got 4. I may as well get another 2."
Yeah. That's actually something just I feel like is interesting in the context of the drafting. In set development way back, we'd talk a lot about, kind of like different archetypes of a draft. I think everyone's familiar with kind of the standard structure that Wizards often uses of like every color pair kind of does a specific thing.
Yeah.
But there's some value in like, oh, here's a black common that maybe fits into black red and black green, but doesn't fit into the other one. So you take it kind of as a medium pick. And you still might be open to like going in different directions. And you might be like, it's not something you guaranteed to get because, I don't know, as the black-green drafter, maybe, this other black-red drafter is going to take it from me or something. And TFT is basically like, it's that all the way down because even if, I'm the only person in... Sorry, enforcers is in my head, so I'm going to keep using it as the example. But
no, it's great because we don't know other people might not know the other types, so you're totally fine.
Totally. So if I'm going all in on enforcers, but you're going all in on pit fighters, we're going to be fighting over some units, and that makes things a little more dynamic.
Yeah,
because it is that shared pool, even when you manage to isolate yourself very well.
Yeah. How long do you have a sense when you first started playing Teamfight Tactics, like how long it took you to like, I guess, leave the comprehension phase? Like, I know what the rules are and I know what basically all the units in the set are. Is that like 10 games in, 50 games in? Do you have a sense of like
I think like the very basics of TFT are very accessible. Like, buy units with the same traits. Buy 3 of a kind and they get better. That's really easy. One step up from that is like, okay, now think about like some of these are tanks and some of these aren't.
Yeah.
And beyond that is where it suddenly gets a lot more complex because thinking about items and like, oh, I've got this kind of unit, so I'd like these kind of items. And when the components, you've got 4 components, what items do you want to build is like a very tricky question because of all of the combinatorics of it. That's where you really get into a lot of the complexity.
Yeah, that's where I kind of lost the thread on playing like Dota 2 and League of Legends, where it's like, I really am not interested in memorizing all these item builds. And I guess the UI is probably better for it now than when I played, but
It's gotten a little better. We do like recommended items right in every unit's like their info. You can be like, oh, this guy really likes these kind of items. But it's still very much the system that is very deep because there's so many combinations, but has a real learning curve to it, because if you're just putting things on like kind of at random, that's where you're probably gonna, struggle the most.
Yeah, some of those are. Do you have to be like certain characters to use certain items, or anyone can use any item? It's just going to be bad on certain characters.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
And we try not to make it like it's pretty rare that it won't do anything for them.
Yeah.
But there's, as a baseline, it's like, hey, the tanky items go on the tanky characters, and just breaking down damage dealers by, are they more magic based or are they more physical damage?
Oh.
But then there's also some concepts, because each champ has its unique ability, which it builds up mana to cast, and some like, do you cast really quickly or do you want to build up a lot of mana? And some of the items are better in one scenario or the other. There's depth to the system, but as a consequence, there's a lot of complexity going on.
It always, like, when I've tried to watch streams, it feels like it's not a microfest because it's not StarCraft. You're not actually moving units around. But when I've watched like good players playing, they are clicking continuously. They are looking at stuff. Yeah.
The thing I'd actually recommend if you want to try getting into it with this set is there's a mode called Talker's Trials, which is like a single player mode, and it has no timer to it. So you can sit there and read everything and move stuff around and be like, nope, actually, these are the things I want to do. And you're playing against bot opponents that are kind of a little bit easier at first. It gets quite challenging as you go deeper into it, but it is like a really TFT has struggled a little bit with learnability in certain places, unless you're getting like taught by someone. But I think Talker's Trials is like one of the best things that we've added for like, hey, this is a great place to start.
Yeah. I guess this is more of an arena thing, but I really want that to exist for arena draft. I'm like a good drafter. I've done 1,000 drafts in my life or whatever. So like when I log on to play drafts, it's like really beneficial to me. I'm going to win enough that I can, don't have to spend too much money to draft again.
Oh yeah, I know like arena really players revolted and wanted the like real draft formats.
Yeah.
And I'm very sad because like I don't always study up on a set before going in, and I love starting from like, give me all the time to read everything.
Yeah. I don't know what the shape of it would be, but like I've been trying to get my dad, who's 75, into Magic, so we can have a common interest or whatever. And like he can handle doing like the tutorials and stuff like that. But anything beyond that, like just the time limit is killing him. Like even just playing like a jumpstart deck. So like, I don't know. I just want there to be some sort of draft thing where it can like teach you what to look for in the draft. And then the games that you're playing aren't too bad, so that he doesn't just like go 0-3 every time. He doesn't have to win prizes. That's not what he's after. He's there for the comprehension, and Arena can't really give that to you.
Yeah, that's really tricky. And yeah, having some format like that where you can take your time and you can hold his hand to a certain extent. I agree. That's something we always struggled with on most of the games that I've worked on, is just like, how do you create those healthy onboarding formats?
Yeah. I often think with like kind of custom Magic stuff, we can solve like what things you put in a set. Like, let's use some weird mechanics. Let's have crazy conspiracies or things sitting in the middle of the table or whatever. But we can't really test out anything that's digital. Like, that's kind of a limitation.
Yeah, I mean, I do think single player is a great way to do that. Not that that's an easy thing to create like custom content for, because it's so like content hungry.
Oh yeah, that's true.
With both Legends of Runeterra and TFT, I feel like, what's the best way to teach someone? Well, give them single player. It no longer has to be like their first game is against a real human who's going to be like tough on them, and
Yeah.
let them take their time. Let them start with easy things. I don't know. Maybe there is a custom version of that. I just don't know quite what it looks like. But yeah.
Yeah.
Going back to our weird pack sizes, maybe there's something
Yeah.
where you start with a 3-card pack and then a 5 and a 7 and you work your way
Oh.
up. I'm
Mm.
really spitballing as I say that,
No, no,
but
no, no.
something so it's not 15 objects that you kind
Yeah.
of feel like you need to read. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, you call it spitballing. I just say our minds are open. Like we're just in the brainstorm.
Sure.
I've wanted that as well. Like start with 3-card. I was not daring enough to go 3-card, but you look at 3 cards, you pick one, you throw out the other 2. Then you get a 5-card pack, and now you start passing. Then you do
Sure.
a 9-card pack, and then you finish with a 50.
Yeah.
That would, I don't know, just help people when they're first starting out. Just looking at 15 cards of a new format is just such an overload.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's satisfying. I mean, kind of like the item combinations you're talking about in TFT. I love it. I thrive in that, but it is tough.
And as an experienced person, you learn shortcuts. Well, okay, let me read the rare and glance at everything else, is a fine shortcut. But until you've learned that shortcut, it's the amount of information is even, higher.
Yeah. Once you've drafted a set even like 10 times, you open a pack, especially on Arena when it appears in a grid. And then within 1 second, your brain has reduced it down to 2 cards that are relevant.
Yeah, exactly.
It's crazy how fast that happens. Yeah. Yeah. I went on a big tangent there, but is there anything else from TFT that we want to make sure that we tell people about? So we got items, you combine those. You've got these like stages. In between stages, you get like a new permanent, I forget what it was called, like the permanent boost.
Oh, augments. Yep.
Augments. Okay. Yeah. Over the course of the game, you're playing a lot of short games, basically. And then are the end battles, are they especially long or they're still fast?
No, they're still fairly fast, and in certain ways, they'll get faster over time. Well, it's in certain ways that your defenses and your offense kind of level up at about the same rate over the course of the game. So, but you have a lot more stuff happening in the course of a fight because you've now got all kinds of things. So it can get overwhelming if actually very, very similar to the booster pack analogy. If you don't know what, like, oh, that's the key unit I should be paying attention to, it can just be like, there's a million colors and spectacle and people are jumping around and dying and I don't know where to look.
Your tank has a purple outline and has stars coming out of it and is on fire and is swinging like at an unnatural speed. And yeah. I think that's part of what people like in Commander, which is like, get ready for this turn, guys. Either you kill me or you don't. I'm going to start doing this stuff. Good luck. That can be part of the fun thing there. It's just right at the end, the turns go from like playing a land and maybe a mana rock to 8 game actions, 10 game actions, 20 game actions.
The last thing I'll say on TFT, typically every set will have like one central unique mechanic that makes it a little bit different than every other set.
Okay.
For Into the Arcane, there's a special round pretty deep into the game, 4-6. You have the anomaly appear. Whoa. And you pick one of your units, and you get like a specific bonus that's permanently attached to that unit, and you can re-roll the bonuses for 1 gold. But it's kind of this like major round as you kind of go into the end game, where you pick one unit to power up and kind of be the star of your show.
Oh wow, huh.
I thought of it specifically because you were saying Commander, and I feel like that's something Commander does really well, of like, okay, there's a lot going on, but here is the unit that like everything gets to kind of focus around. And it serves a little bit of a similar purpose where it's like, okay, this game, normally my Vi would do this, but now she's got a bunch of extra armor, and every time she hits someone, she stuns them for a second or something. So she gets to be even a little bit, cooler than someone else's Vi might.
Yeah. I've kind of wanted that in like Commander Draft. There have been a bunch of Commander Draft sets now, and like
Mm-hmm.
your commander is not nearly as special in Commander Limited as it is in regular Commander, because you might build around it a little bit, but it's more just like a thing that determines your color identity and hopefully has a cool ability. If there was something you could draft, I mean, we're still in the conspiracy brain. I'm sorry, listeners, but
Yeah.
if there's some additional thing that I'm going to draft to power up my commander some more, like backgrounds are a little bit like this, but if there's some component where I can say, I'm going to be playing this particular blue-white bird commander, but it's going to be different from any other time you've seen it in this draft format because I powered it up with this thing that lets it like block any number of creatures or whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and really makes it like, or you're talking about like, oh, I've played Vi in a comp like 20 games now, but I've never combined Vi with the stun ability, and now it feels different. And my whole comp even feels different because my star unit has this ability that is so fundamental.
Yeah, to pull together a couple of the threads we've been talking about, maybe
Yeah.
it's like after the second round of the draft, we do a special draft round where we pick one of these hidden agendas to permanently apply to our commander, and I don't know, they're all face up Rochester style draft.
Yeah, I love it. It's a commander draft, so maybe it's like 8 people. It's going to split into 2 pods of 4, but maybe you play 2 or 3 games. If we have that moment, 2/3 of the way through the draft, that's about where this anomaly kicks in. Maybe.
Exactly.
Is that about right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's when we all flop our commander down and say, this is going to be my commander. And we're going to also like argue over who gets what augment. Or we're going to draft over. It's also anticipation because we still have a pack left. It still has like, here's my cool bad guy. So we're all kind of building up opinions on each other and laughing about it and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I actually really like the signaling of that as well. Of like, okay, we're drafting together. I might not know exactly what you're doing, but I know who you just revealed as your commander, and I don't know. I can even like think about stuff that I'm gonna take to like fight against them or something here.
Yeah,
I'll take that Shatter or whatever card. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, I'm loving that. That's a great point. I get a third of a draft. My last pack is when I can start to think about that. My first 2 packs, that's just me time. That's just me like taking cards, reading cards for the first time, learning what the mechanics are in the set. Then we have the showcase moment or whatever, the showcase round. And then we have one more pack. And that's when I can start to think about what other people are up to. Or maybe, hey, I see, you're passing to me and we're both black, but you have a different other color. I'm going to look at this card in this pack differently because now I can say I have to lean away from black and only expect to be getting red cards now. Or I can, take a shatter, take something like that. That's going to help me against what some of my opponents are going to do.
Yeah, I like this plan.
Alrighty. So anything else we want to talk about with TFT before we start winding down here?
I mean, there's certainly like all kinds of other details to the games, but like I think we covered all of the critical pieces in describing TFT and probably the juiciest pieces for us to like think about in relation to Magic.
Yeah, there's always just like playing another game and just looking at every mechanic on every card, and like I do this with Hearthstone pretty often. Yeah, there's that kind of stuff, but no, we're more in that structural level. What kind of like variants, what kind of big things dictate what TFT is, and then what can we learn from? So I've never had someone who works on a game explain their game to me like this. This is I really feel privileged right now.
It's been a fun conversation, so
I'm glad. Before we get out of here, I got a couple things to tell everyone about or remind everyone about. One of them is our monthly design challenge. This is like if you want to participate in Beacon, if you're a new listener, you just come in, you want to design some cards, you've got some cards you want to show us, please join the Discord, show them to us. But if you want something where we're all going to kind of gather around and look at your cards and read them on the podcast, the monthly challenge is the way to do that. Our December one is called Advent Sentinel, or Advent Sentinel, if people know Rise of the Eldrazi. Design a card that cares about Defender, but doesn't cause all defenders to attack. This is like a common thing with Defender decks, Arcades or whatever. All your Defender creatures deal damage equal to their toughness and can attack as though they didn't have Defender. Those are cool cards, That's not what we're asking for with this challenge. We want some other thing to care about with Defender. Did you ever make a Defender deck? Do you have any Defenders that you've loved?
Oh, I mean, Conspiracy One had a whole Defender sub-theme, so but I totally get the challenge you're giving people. There's so much of the like temptation that, hey, how do we make this thing cool? Well, we remove the downside that defines it. So yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for people? What worked in Conspiracy, the sub theme there? What can we
I mean, we it's tricky because you still want it to end games, like just being a infinite wall that slows the game to a halt isn't what you want. Conspiracy, I think very key to the Defenders deck was Vent Sentinel that did shoot players, so it's not attacking, but it's similar. I think Doorkeeper was a pretty fun one from Return to Ravnica that milled like people equal. Yep.
Yeah. Well, Vent Sentinel, that's what this challenge is named after. Advent Sentinel.
Oh, that wasn't even registering for me. I'm embarrassed now, but yes.
No, it's great. No, we're aligned. We're synergized. We're challenging people to somehow dig deep and invent the next Vent Sentinel. Like really.
Yeah.
If people give us a comment, a lot of these challenges, these are about people giving us their like legends and, rares and stuff like that. Sometimes people try to take on the common, and that's equally exciting, I would say.
That's a harder challenge. There's so many more limitations there, but that's cool.
Yeah. Maybe someone will send us a conspiracy that cares about Defender.
Nice. I love it.
All right. We also get a couple bonus points whenever we do these challenges. I'll just go over these real quick. Advent Children. The card is Offspring, the new Bloomberg mechanic. What are you going to do? Not only are you going to get a Defender, you're going to get a little baby Defender to go along with you. And then Advent Calendar. Rewards something each turn cycle or each turn. Like a calendar is doing something at certain intervals. How you want to represent that on a card. But those are just bonuses. The main thing you're doing is do something that cares about Defender, except for that attacking stuff. And we're always looking forward to that. That'll be due December 27th. I think this episode might come out on Christmas Day, just because of our schedule. So if for some reason you're bored of hanging out with your family and listen to this pod, get in the Discord. You got 2 days left to get us your Defender card. You're the Christmas miracle. You get to be the baby Jesus.
What an honor.
One more thing that I'd like to encourage people to participate in the Discord is called Popcorn. Instead of thinking huge, I want to design a whole set. This is the opposite. I got to design a card that goes with the last card that was submitted. The idea here is just log on. What's the current card that's in the Popcorn queue? Make a card that goes off of it. And I just wanted to read the current one. I didn't play in this just to give people a taste of what they should look for in Popcorn. Blue card came in here from Red Bay called Professor of Equivalency. This is 2 and a blue for a 1/4 Turtle Advisor. So kind of average kind of defensive creature. When this creature enters, reveal a card you own outside the game that has synergy. This is maybe extra meta. That has synergy with another non-land permanent you control and put it into your hand. Cards have synergy. Oh, this is a definition. I love this. Cards have synergy if they share 2 or more traits from among mana value, color, and card type.
Fascinating.
Wow. So this is what people can expect if they log into this Popcorn thread. They're going to see synergy defined on a Magic card. Finally, after 30 years of talking about synergy, now we know what it means. But yeah, that's about it for our podcast for the week. Thank you so much for jumping on. It's been such a fun conversation talking to you, talking conspiracy, talking everything else.
It's been my pleasure.
Anything you want to tell people about? I guess play the new set. What was it called again? Into the
Arcane.
Yeah. And the Arcane show, is that finished up yet? Or
Yep, season 2 ended shortly after the set launched. So yeah.
Alrighty. All right. If people want to follow you, Twitter, something like that, is there anywhere that people can?
Oh, sure. Shawn Main on Twitter. I'm usually some combination of Shawn Main and Shawn Elizabeth on most of the social media, but yeah.
All right. And if you need to find me, Tim F. Riley, I just opened a Blue Sky account. I don't know if I'm going to be active or not, but I'm looking around. So find me there too. And most of all, everyone, thanks for listening.